Her name is Dawn. On the 23rd of March 2010 she was born. She's got half a heart, yes you heard that right. You're looking at Supergirl fighting with all her might. So stick around and you will hear the amazing story about my girl right here.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Archer Adventures, and welcome back to Heart Month. If you are new here, my name is Jade-Marie and I'm the mother to almost 9-year-old Dawn-louise, who has half a heart, otherwise known as hypoplastic left heart syndrome. So in today's video, I want to touch base on our first week of life together. Now, obviously, this was almost 9 years ago for us, so my memory isn't great. So this is going to be a very brief video and just kind of a synopsis of the week. I just want to go over a couple of things that I felt and a couple of things that we went through. And if you have any questions, you might jog my memory. Dawn-louise was first born by C-section. If you want to learn more about that, you can watch my birth story that I did earlier in the month, and you can also watch my pregnancy video. So when Dawn-louise was a baby, she was in the neonatal intensive care unit in a hospital outside of our city. Thankfully, 36 hours after she was born, not just myself, but myself, my mum, my brother and my granddad, her great-granddad, all got to come have cuddles. I've already expressed in a different video how I felt about not being able to hold my daughter close or do skin-to-skin contact, so I'm not going to go getting all emotional on this video, but I would like to remind you that she did spend most of her time in a glass crib. I'll insert a photo so you can understand what that means. And we spent the first week of her life on a ward with many beeping machines, many nurses rushing around, kids in very critical conditions, and it was a very hard place to be. If you've never stepped inside a PICU before, it is extremely hard to understand the feeling of being inside one, because these are children that have just had surgery, these are children that might be dying, these are children that have been born and had severe complications, they could be premature. I remember once when we were in there was a 16-year-old boy who had just had open heart surgery, and because they couldn't close the curtains, everybody in the entire ward could see him with all his chest tubes and everything, and it is a very hard place to be, and it is hard for both the family that sat there with their child who is going to be asleep for a very long time, to also being you know, there is another family watching on and seeing the pain that you once felt or are going to one day feel. So when Dawn-louise was 6 days old, as you would have seen in the surgical video, she had her first surgery. So up until that point, she had a feeding tube and she had medications to keep her alive and keep her as healthy as they could and fatten her up a bit ready for surgery. The hardest part of the first week was her coming back to the PICU, because after her first surgery, she had her chest open. And that, I mean that very literally, her entire chest cavity was still open and I could see her heart. There was a very thin white cloth stitched into her skin to stop it obviously bleeding out. This is called a membrane. But unfortunately you could still see it, and it was extremely hard to see it. Nobody had warned me that she was going to have her chest open, so when I was excited to finally be reunited with her after 10 hours apart with just my 6-day-old baby, I walked back onto PICU and they said this is her, and I couldn't even recognise my own baby because she had so much fluid, her face was really swollen, so she didn't look the same as when I left her. And her chest was completely open. There were 3 chest drains in her draining blood and excess fluid. There were many cannulas and medications attached to her. There was oxygen, there was a ventilator, and it was a really traumatic moment for me to see her like that. And I did unfortunately have to ask the nurses to cover her chest with a blanket because I could not take looking at my little baby like that. I wasn't ready for it, and I really wish that somebody had prepared me for what I was going to see. Sadly, the only photo I have of her post-Norwood is very blurry, as I was, like I said, too scared to look at it. My mum ended up taking a photo of her, and that is the photo I have. Unfortunately, she had an even worse phone than I did, so the quality is really poor. But it is a moment in my life that now I do want to look back on, so I'm glad that she at least took one photo. The hardest part during the first week of Dawn-louise's life was simply the fact that I could barely touch her. After surgery, 2 days of that first week, Dawn-louise was asleep. She was completely knocked out. And all I could do was hold her hand, and I couldn't feel her tighten around my fingers because obviously she wasn't awake to do so. So it really was, the last 2 days of that first week were just me sat by her side, holding her hand and just talking to her, and I'd stroke her head in places that I could. There wasn't really enough room left for it. But yeah, that is just a brief synopsis of what happened during the first week. I realise that I haven't really said much in this video, but we will get onto more stuff as the month goes on. So I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Everybody gives you advice, yeah, on how to live your life, how to live your life. Don't you know that life is full of surprises? You better realize, better realize.